Just what have your impressions been of Carson Beck so far this season?
Yeah, I think one of the best things I could say is he's played his best when his best has been needed. And I was just so impressed. I mentioned it last week on the show. I was just so impressed at his mentality when they had a tough first half against South Carolina and the camera's on him and he winks at the camera as to say, like, it's okay, we got this. And he came out and had a really good second half. Against Auburn, a really good fourth quarter, made plays, has had a lot of his best plays in those second halves. I mean, if you're a Georgia fan, that's a really nice sign, because it's easy in today's offense to kind of put up some certain stats and some offenses here and there, but man, in the hard moments to come through on the third and longs and the fourth downs, and when you're down 7 at Jordan-Hare, that's hard. That's one of the hardest places in the country to play. We couldn't win there. That's difficult. And what he did in the fourth quarter, I think it earned a lot of respect from his teammates and definitely from me, and I know a lot of other people watching.
Tim, I was going to ask you about Georgia's 22-game win streak. It kind of jumps out at me. I think you had a 22-game win streak down there with what they call the Swamp Kings era now. That's now officially the Swamp Kings.
Oh boy.
How do you compare the Georgia win streak to the Florida win streak with 08-09, I think, right?
Yeah, I think they were both special runs. What Kirby's done here it's been incredible. The style and the manner in which he's done it, back-to-back championships, it's pretty incredible. The way he's done it with the physicality, the defenses, but the offenses that have come through in big moments, and the game plans in SEC championships and semis and natties. It's just been special. He's done it his way. Just got to give him so much credit. And the way that he's continued to keep that mentality, the way that he's kept so many of these players here. I was just in the weight room getting a lift in a few minutes ago, and just we were talking about with some of the strength staff, like he's kept all these players that, I mean, their second, third team players are still better than a lot of other starters, and he keeps them here. And I think part of it is because he teaches that mentality, and they know that most of the players are going to get drafted and play at the next level, and they know that when they do get on the field, they're going to be one of the best teams and one of the best players in the country. And he teaches that mentality of, we're going to be the hunter, not the hunted. And I know the phrases get tossed around a lot, but it goes so much deeper than that. And I just think he deserves a lot of praise, because it's hard, especially when you get to the top and you can sustain it, and you're getting everyone's best game. And we throw around that as a catchphrase, but when you live in that moment and you have to deal with it, and you get just chipped away at over and over and over again, it's hard not to get those body blows, and they just fend it off very well. It's very impressive.
That's what I was going to ask you. Having been a part of a streak like that, when do you start to feel it? Now, your streak, I think, ended in an SEC championship game, didn't?
Thanks for bringing that up.
Sorry.
Just kidding.
But isn't it a positive though when you've won enough games in a row? I mean, didn't your team believe, or is, like you said, the drawback of the chipping away?
It is a positive, but I would say just important to bring up the other side is. You're getting everybody's best game, but then you're also getting the comparison against what you did last time. And that's also hard to fight against. We only won by 10. You barely beat Auburn. You only did this, And instead of, yes, we celebrate it. I think Kirby also does a good job of balancing the celebration of the win, because it's hard. It's hard to get those wins. But yet, I think one of the things that we should have done better, I should have done better, especially at the end, is continuing to celebrate those as much as we did early on. And I think they've done a good job here of continuing to celebrate those, because it's hard to get it done. It takes a team effort, a team rallying together. And yeah, okay, maybe last year you beat them by 24 and this year you beat them by 10. Still celebrate that. And I think they've continued to do that.
Go ahead.
You guys saw Kentucky last week. What do you think, I guess on both sides, what do you think Georgia's biggest challenges going into this game, and then what do you think Kentucky's biggest challenges as well?
I think for Kentucky, they've had these moments multiple times. I think maybe one time was 5 years ago. They were undefeated coming here. 2 or 3 years ago, I think they were undefeated. And every year, Well, a lot of years you feel like this has been kind of that game for the East, and this year it's a slightly different feeling with it, though. I think for Kentucky, they've been a physical team, but they've never matched Georgia in it. When it's come to this, similar styles, but they've never matched it. They have to neutralize the physicality of Georgia, or very little chance. And I think this is the closest team to actually being able to do that. The way their front seven played, I think that's going to be so crucial to stop the running game of Georgia. Ray Davis, when you watch a TV copy from last week, you kind of see an amazing game, but when you watch the all 22 and you look at how many broken tackles, missed tackles, yards after contact, I was blown away. He instantly, from what he did all season, but in that game, I thought it was one of the best performances I have seen this season, last week, out of any position. It is really staggering, especially the way he started it. And yes, the offensive line really helped in play calling as the game went going. But the first 3 plays of the game, I'm gonna have a tape tomorrow, and the first 3 plays of the game, that wasn't everybody. That was him. He made it at the first play of the game. He made a guy miss at the line of scrimmage, and then broke another tackle 6 yards and got 11-yard gain because is an individual effort. Second play, same thing, and the third play was only a 4-yard gain, but he ran over the middle linebacker and set the tone. And I just think, like, that's never really happened against Georgia. Could someone provide a spark a little bit like that? Could you bring enough of that physicality to match it? I'm not saying that they can, do that against Georgia, but can you match it? I think if so, that would provide a I don't know, sense of relief that you can match that physical presence against Georgia. Because let's be honest, when's the last team to do it?
Obviously, the Heisman Trophy's become a little bit of a quarterback award. But Brock Bowers and the way that he's played, I mean, just what do you make of him?
He's in it. He's in it. He's in the conversation. I think if you watch, you look at everything he does, and you really don't just look at stats. And I would encourage all the voters, please look at all the plays. Please look at the jet sweeps. Please look at the motions. Please look at the way he draws defenders. Please look at the way that he's on slip screens and their eyes are on him and other players get open. Please look at the way on third down that he drew a couple of guys and now lads one-on-one. Look at when they run a tall sweep and he's blocking down on the edge defensive end that outweighs him by probably 35 pounds, and he locks his outside edge and he runs the number with him and he gives Georgia a 6-yard gain. Like, they need to look at all of those plays, and I think when you look at all of it, I'm not saying that he's number one, I'm just saying he is so in that conversation for me because of everything he does, and then on top of it, what he does in the clutch.
Tim, you had an opportunity to play in a 2-quarterback system early in your career. How difficult is that? We see Hugh Freeze doing it. We know that Georgia may have another tool in the toolbox, so to speak, with Brock Vandergriff. How tough is that for an offensive staff to pull off, and what's the value of having a running quarterback like you were early in your career?
Yeah, I think there's an upside and a downside. The upside is, man, you make a defense their coaches spend a lot of hours not sleeping that week because you got to prepare for so many things. When they bring this guy in, are we ready for all of it? And then you make the players think about so much more, prepare for so much more. I think the downside of it is you always worry about the chemistry, about the communication going in and out. I think it's not just their talents, it's also the mindsets and the personality of those guys. And we were fortunate that worked well. And we kind of had an idea going into the weeks. We knew LSU week, okay, this is going to be it. When we get in the red zone, we're going to have this, and this, and we're going to bring out the jump pass, and we're going to have the counters and the powers. And then Chris knew, all of the roles, and we kind of knew our roles. And I think that was one of the good things that Coach Mullen and Coach Meyer really did to help us is you had a little bit of an idea going in, and it wasn't, sometimes you have to adjust in the game, obviously, right? But having that idea, okay, I could almost put my back foot back because I knew they're about to say go, right? And that really helps you kind of prepare mentally and stay focused as much as you can.
Watching this Georgia offense, Todd Monken last year, Mike Bobo this year, can you tell a difference?
Well, every year is different, and every year you're going to have to learn, grow, adapt to your players. And I think Coach Bobo is doing some really good things, especially second half adjustments. I think that's where they've kind of excelled so far. I want to give Coach Monken a lot of credit, though. I thought some of his game plans in big games were stunning. I mean, superb. His game plans in the national championship last year. He's had some great ones, and I think this year Coach Bobo is continuing to adapt and grow, and you also are putting as much as you feel like the team and the quarterback and the system and the game plan allows for. And so you got a quarterback that's in a much different place than Stetson was. Stetson's like, he's like 39 last year, and Carson's, even though he's older, he's playing in, it was his 5th start or something like that. So I think you'll continue to see more put in, but I really like the adjustments. Love what they've done in the fourth quarters when the games have been online. So it's be fun to continue to see how it adapts. And I think it's also important to remind people that it wasn't the offense that sometimes people remember throughout the whole year. There was the Missouri game, Kent State game, other games where they were continuing to learn and grow. And sometimes when we look back, it gets fictional, like, and they just blew everybody out. And it's like, we were just talking about that in our production meeting. It's like, not every game was the highlight reel for him. I think sometimes it's important, just be patient and enjoy those wins like we were talking about.
Tim, there's only one SEC team currently ranked in the top 10 of the AP top 25. That seems odd to me. Are you drinking that Kool-Aid, or where do you think the SEC ends up, or is this a bit of a reload year with all the quarterbacks that moved on?
I don't think the SEC is as top heavy as they've been in the past right now, but I still think it's got a lot of good teams. And that's like, you could look at Auburn and say that Auburn hasn't had the best year, but if you look at 3 hours last Saturday afternoon at Jordan-Hare, that's a team that was playing like a top 25 team. And so I still think there's kind of that respect that needs to take place. That team that played with Hugh Freeze calling the plays and that style at home, that team beats a lot of good football teams around the country. And so while I don't think the SEC is as good as it's been, nor is top heavy, still hard to get wins in it.
Yeah, Kirby said this week that he thinks that every SEC team should be ranked. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's really hard to get wins in the SEC. I think for a lot of reasons. It's physical. You get beat up. You have to sustain that week after week. So it might not be that in all the other conferences they could beat SEC teams. That could definitely happen. You could at the highest level, in the middle schools, the bottom schools, that can happen. But one of the hardest parts that I would sometimes try to explain to people is when you go from playing Tennessee to Auburn to Ole Miss to Georgia, what happens is your body starts to break down a little bit. Not just from the skill, but from the physicality of it. And so when you go play Georgia and Jacksonville, my right AC is a little bit separated. I'm just talking from experience, right? And if you look at the game, well, we lost to them and it sucked, but it was also sucked because you couldn't really lift your right arm. That physicality, takes a toll throughout the season. And that's the coaches of handling that grind. And that's part of the hard thing of the SEC is you're trying to keep them fresh but bring that same intensity every week. That's a hard balance.